against GM canola introduction.
In Williams they were, and in fact back in 2008, 2009 there were 25 councils that declared that they would be GM free. At the time, as they were putting these decisions into place, Terry Redmond, then Agriculture and Food Minister, I should say. We always forget food, and that's what they're growing. That's food, but they tend to forget it, and so it unfortunately seeps through to our description of them. But at the time, he said he would honour their decisions. So 25 of these shires decided to become GM free, and then he said he wouldn't. He said nothing will stop me, and so he then ignored all of their decisions. And hey, it's Spider-Man. Isn't that fantastic? Yeah. Genetically engineered.
Spider-Man.
Yeah. So so he said, I will. He said nothing will stand in my way. So he went ahead and made an exemption for GM canola in WA, and as they say, the rest is history, because in that first year of GM commercialisation in 2010, an organic farmer in Kojonup, Steve Marsh, discovered his neighbour's GM canola on his land, and of course that's eventuated in a Supreme Court case, which finished early this year, 2014, and the ironic thing was that neither farmer had done anything wrong, but the judge declared that in fact it was the organic organisation that did the wrong thing by stating that Marsh should have lost his accreditation because he found.
Well, I'm sure that customers for organic would not want the organic body NASA to do anything different to what they did, which was decertify.
Which was to decertify, and that brings us to the situation we have now, because now the Department of Agriculture and WA has applied to the organic body to allow up to 0.9% GM contamination in organics.
What?
Why would they do that?
Of organics?
Now, when they presented the reports and studies to introduce GM into Australia and into WA, they did not say at that time that there was anything wrong with the organic standards, and they knew fully well that organic standards was zero tolerance for GM. Nothing was said. When they allowed GM in WA in 2010, once again, nothing was said about the standards. But once they discovered that the canola could not be segregated, and once they realised that the organic standards were strict and would adhere to what they said, which was zero tolerance, they've now decided that it's too strict. Organic standards are too strict, and so it has to change to accommodate this new technology. I don't like to call it a technology, because technologies are usually proven, whereas this has not been proven. So I like to call it a technique, really. So this new technique of genetically engineering things, and resulting in GM canola growing along the roadways and on people's farms unwanted, and yet it is the people who are having to put up with it are the ones that have to change their standards. I mean, where else in industry does that work? Like someone makes
and there's
purple
a
paint.
growing demand for organics, isn't there?
A growing demand for organics. It's a bit like somebody making purple paint and they can't segregate it. So every other paint maker, the white from the yellow to the green, have to accommodate a little bit of purple in their paint because it can't be segregated. Would that be accepted by the paint industry, I wonder?
Not at all.
It wouldn't be, really. And we're talking about something living, that it won't just sit there and be benign. It will sit there and grow.
Self-replicate.
And self-replicate, exactly. So we are talking about something that will mimic nature. and will be uncontrollable, which we have discovered it is. So yes, we have this petition at the moment which is going to the head secretariat of the organic body to say that we do not want to see any watering down of organic standards.
Absolutely
People are worried
not.
if we, it's 0.9% today, what is it going to be next year?
Yes, exactly.
When we have opened the floodgates. And what is it going to do for organic growers? They will be able to say, yes, it's organic, but they will not be able to say, and it is also GM free.
That's why a lot of people buy organics, is to avoid GM, isn't it?
It's your only guarantee at the moment of anything being GM free, to say that it is certified organic standards. But
So Mr. Redmond met with, the National Party, had their conference on last weekend.
They did,
Margaret
they did.
River.
And we heard that they actually debated the GM moratorium. And at first we were told that they were calling for its removal. But when we looked into it, it appears that there was a debate and the repeal was rejected. The repeal was rejected. So what they've actually said is they are not asking for the act to be repealed. They want it to stay in place.
Oh.
This was very much underplayed.
Oh.
And you have to listen to
I just read the
ABC.
headline.
The ABC
headline.
actually had interviewed him, and what he said was that
The
there was a call
president.
by the Young Nationals to repeal the Act, to get rid of the Act. It was debated and it was rejected.
Oh,
But
that's
what
good.
they have decided instead is an amendment to the Act, and this is where it's getting very confusing.
Yes.
We're not actually sure what this amendment is, and they refer to it as calling the whole of WA GM free. So I'm not really sure, because the Minister already
Well,
has
can't-
that ability to declare, like the Ord, a GM cotton growing region, and the whole of WA a canola growing region. So I'm not really sure what that means, but I think we can take a little bit of heart in the fact that they have rejected repealing the total Act.
Yes.
But we need to investigate a little bit more. And I
So
think
maybe Sally's Wiley's letter to the President,
perhaps it
and
might
your,
have had.
indeed you sent a letter
I
to
think
every
there
member
has been
of the
some,
Nationals.
yeah,
which-
we have been lobbying, several of our groups have been lobbying the Nationals to look closely at getting rid of the Act, and perhaps they have,
actually
it may-
read your letter, which made tons of sense.
It may have had an impression
Well
on them.
researched and
Because basically,
referenced.
yeah, I mean, if we're looking at GM wheat, there is no economic reason to go down that avenue, because there is no market for GM wheat. There's absolute rejection. We know that a report put together by a group of organisations in Australia, our Food Watch being one of them, last year, showed that 25 of Australia's biggest wheat markets, nationally and internationally, have already said that they would reject GM wheat. So, what would be the sense in trying to introduce it, knowing you can't control it, and then expecting the market to, a bit like the organic market, to accommodate contamination?
And
You know,
isn't there
it doesn't
something
make
really
sense.
scary that this GM wheat is a
this so
dominant gene
much.
which outcrosses 6 times? Can you?
Yeah.
Elaborate
I
on
think
that?
yes, because GM crops are what they call promiscuous anyway. They are dominant, and so if they are like set free, they are with wheat. I think it's 2.5. Is it up to 6 times?
6.
You think it's 6 times? Perhaps it's canola that's 2.5 times more likely, and then wheat 6 times more likely. I mean, and wheat can on a good day. To outcross, and on a good day, it can travel 2.5 kilometres.
Right.
The pollen.
So
So
those of us who try to avoid canola for its pesticides and apart from anything else, and its possibility of being contaminated with GM, it's easy enough to avoid GM canola oil, but very difficult to avoid wheat.
yes, exactly.
It's in everything, isn't
Wheat
it?
is in
Pasta, bread.
everything, absolutely. And
No more pizza.
yeah, like you think where it comes into your food, processed food or sort of homemade food, it's in everything, absolutely everything. And you know, to even think about introducing GM wheat. We have got GM wheat trials going on in WA at the moment. Secret locations, we don't know where, but you know, like you hear about these. Well, you see pictures of these willy willies that go through, you know, the bush and these big dust storms and everything else. I mean, they go on for kilometres and kilometres. And you know, to isolate pollen, especially when you have a look at these. There was something about the Catani, no, the Meriden GM research station. That's right, and it's an absolute shambles. I mean, they've got bird nets up there, but what good is bird nets when you've got pollen?
I even read a letter in the paper from a pro-GM, a person who supports GM, who is embarrassed about the state of this brand new facility. It's apparently in tatters with all its roofing torn and falling off. And
I know it's had tens of millions of dollars input, and yet
only recently, very recently,
3 years old, I think.
And apparently it's a shambles.
I know. I mean, what's going on? These sort of facilities are supposed to be scrutinised and well kept and protected.
New genes for new environments. It was great fanfare.
And yet there it is. It's just an absolute mess, and who knows whether there are any volunteers that are growing there and
volunteers not being people.
Volunteers not being people, but I mean like
plants.
GM plant volunteers. You know, ones that haven't, that have stayed dormant in the ground and have suddenly, burst to life. And what's happening with them? Who's monitoring them? If the nets are down, is anyone at home? Is anyone looking after the place?
Exactly.
You have to wonder. So so much money being put into this.
So Janet, may I just to interrupt? Sorry. Can we see your T-shirt? What's this?
Yes.
Stand up to Monsanto, support organic and non-GM farmers, because it isn't just organic farmers, is it? It's most farmers.
We have, we just hear from this very noisy lobby group called the PGA. And even by their own admittance, they have about 800 members. 800 members. Out of a possible 2,500, perhaps. So no more than that, because we reckon that that must be about 8% of the farmers in WA perhaps are PGA members. Very, very few, and yet they have very rich supporters by all accounts. They have deep pockets and big voices, and they have the ear of the parties, the National Party and the Liberal Party. So this is the problem that we have, but they're saying more and more farmers are growing GM. Now we don't know where those figures come from, because the only people that have access to those figures is Monsanto itself, or through their grain trader, which is New Seed.
There's another promise that Mr. Redmond made, wasn't it? That we was going to have a map with all the growers of GM
know who was growing it, how much was growing. There was going to be absolute government control over it, and within 3 years they lost control. They no longer know who is growing it, or where, or how much, or where it is going. They have lost. The horse has bolted. The horse has bolted, and do you know what? They're totally complacent about it. They don't think it's a problem, and yet they did promise us those. But it goes along with all the promises that this government's made. It's broken promises all the way.
Jenna, I'm really sorry. I think we have to wrap it up there.
Okay.
I'd love to. I know we could talk on for hours, but YouTube only allow us 15 minutes. So
but we'll have to heart that the WA Farmers Grains section have said that they also don't see much sense in growing GM wheat. So I think we have to hold on to that as well.
Yeah. And you just to wrap it up, you've been fighting this campaign against GM foods for 11 years.
That's right.
And very lonely at times. No help, no money.
No money, very little money. Fabulous volunteers. We need more volunteers all the time. People need to sort of be active about this, because, literally this is our future. This is our future, guys. If we don't do something now, it'll be gone.
Yeah.
So
we'll catch up next month, and meanwhile I'm going to put your email address at the bottom of this video for people to contact you.
Fantastic, and our Facebook page as well.
And Facebook.
That'll be good.
The Food Watch website is excellent. unfortunately, we need somebody to help upkeep
Yes,
that.
if anyone who knows anything about Drupal, that would
Drupal,
be
the
fabulous.
platform.
Drupal, because it's the work engine, and
Well,
yes.
let's hope there's someone out there that can step up to the challenge of upkeeping the website on Drupal.
Yeah, that would be great.
Thank you very, very much,
Okay, and
Janet.
from Spider-Man and myself, goodbye.
Goodbye.